Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We begin with acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
And to you, Ms. Brennan.
I want to get right to it in the wake of this horrific terror attack in New Zealand. There's a lot of parsing of the president's own language in referring to what happened here. Broadly speaking, a number of attacks and support for white supremacy is up, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. And even a Trump-appointed attorney in the state of Virginia, Thomas Cullen, was recently quoted as saying, "White supremacy and far-right extremism are among the greatest domestic security threats facing the United States." Has the president been briefed on this?
I don't know who that gentleman is. Certainly the president's briefed on all of...
You know who the Southern Poverty Law Center is?
I do. The president's absolutely briefed on all of the threats, both domestic and international. But I want to push back against this idea that every time something bad happens everywhere around the world, folks who don't like Donald Trump seem to blame it on Donald Trump. I'm hoping we can get...
I'm not blaming it on the president. I was asking about his characterization.
I didn't say you. I'm saying that that's clearly what some folks want to do. I've heard other members of the Democrat Party trying to do it, folks at the Southern Poverty Law Center here trying to do it. This is a tragic thing that happened in New Zealand.
They're just saying the number of white nationalist groups has surged by 50%.
Since Trump has become office, right?
Well, in the past year.
There you go. Here's the point. Why can't we...
So you disagree that it's a rising threat?
I disagree that there's a causal link between Donald Trump being president and something like this happening in New Zealand.
But that's not the argument or the suggestion there, by the judge or by that statistic. Is the president aware that this is a rising threat?
Again, a rising threat. I think the president, you saw him asked the other day, does he think it's a rising threat? And he says, no. I think there's information that would back that up. The issue is, how do you stop these crazy people? Whether or not there's one of them or four of them doesn't make a difference if they're willing to go on live TV and stream the murder of people. So I think that's where the time is better spent. Instead of worrying about, well, who's to blame? How do we stop from doing this? Donald Trump is no more to blame for what happened in New Zealand than Mark Zuckerberg is, because he invented Facebook. There are some terrible people in the world. We need to work with our partners, of which New Zealand is one of them, to try and figure a way to find them, expose them, and bring them to justice.
Well, President Trump, and certainly during the campaign, talked quite a lot about the need to be specific, to name a threat in order to counter it. So why minimize it? Why not directly address white supremacy and specifically Islamophobia?
Yeah, I get a lot of questions
because a number
about...
of world leaders did, and the president didn't.
I get a lot of questions from people saying, well, you need to tell the president to do X. You need to tell the president to go and give an Oval Office address on this or on that. That's not how the system works. The president communicates in his way. Different presidents have communicated in their way. I don't think anybody can claim that Donald Trump hasn't done exactly what we would want him to do in this circumstance. We've immediately reached out to our allies. We've expressed the absolute disgust at the tragic events. We're doing what presidents are supposed to do. That doesn't mean that it's going to make everybody happy because of the hyper-partisan times we live in. But again, it frustrates me just as a citizen that every time something goes wrong around the world now, not just in our country, somehow the president of the United States must be responsible. And that's absurd, and it doesn't help contribute to the dialogue that's necessary to fix these problems.
Point taken, but the president of the United States carries a megaphone louder than anyone in the world, and arguably this president likes to use his. So because you're frustrated, why not remove any shadow of a doubt? I mean, during the campaign, as you know, as a candidate, the president called for a ban on all Muslims entering the United States. He said Islam hates us. This kind of language in the past leads to these questions of why isn't the president now directly using that megaphone to condemn it?
Well, then take the words and put them in one category, and take the actions and put them in another. Something the president doesn't get hardly any credit for or any attention to is the work he's done in defense of religious minorities all around the world, up to and including Muslims in the Middle East. Some of the religious minorities that are the worst oppressed in the Middle East are some of the ones that this administration has been going to great lengths to protect. So I hear what folks say, oh, Donald Trump said this during the campaign. Look at what we've done while we've been here. And I don't think anybody could say that the president is anti-Muslim.
Well, the president's tweeting now about a TV host who was suspended for anti-Muslim rhetoric. So it's, I think, a fair question to ask you about this. But I want to move on to one of the fights that is going on in Congress and questions from a number of senators about exactly what programs are going to lose funding in order to put together funding for the border wall. When will the White House give this detail detailed list, specifically on military projects, to Congress?
It could be a while, and here's why. Here's what's happening, is that we've already told Congress this, which is that none of the programs that were scheduled to be started, or what we call obligated, in 2019, so between now and the end of September, will be impacted at all.
The service chiefs have told Congress they have that list, but the White House is not handing that list over.
No, that's absolutely. I know of no list, and if anybody should know, it would be me. There's no list of projects that are absolutely going to not be funded so that the wall can be. What it is a list of programs that fit the criteria that I've just laid out for you, which is that they are meant to be funded beyond the end of this fiscal year. Why is that important? Because if it's going to be a project that would have been funded, say, in 2021, okay, it gives us another couple of years to what we call backfill. Congress will pass another appropriation this year, next year, so that ultimately none of the programs will be impacted.
Senator Tim Kaine, who sits on Armed Services, is going to be on the show later in the program. But when we spoke with him, he specifically said that he thinks the White House is withholding these details until after this upcoming vote on the veto override occurs. In other words, you're trying to keep Republicans on board, and if you fully inform them about what you're going to do to their district, then you might lose their vote.
I'll watch the show. In fact, if I can catch Tim in the green room, I'll ask him what the basis is for that. Does he just think it because he wants it to be true, or someone told him there's actually a list? Because again, I'm chief of staff. I'm also still technically over at the Office of Management and Budget.
And you still don't know what's getting cut.
I know of no list.
And you don't know what's getting cut.
That's correct. I know of the universe of things that might be delayed or reduced or cut in a very extreme circumstance that could be funded, that used to fund the wall. But of a list of a decision that's already been made saying this money is going to be cut and spent over there, that's not been made yet.
So remove any doubt, you say no matter what these details are, you still have the votes to override this veto, to block any kind of override.
Yes, no, we fully expect the veto override to fail in the House.
All right. Thank you. Mick Mulvaney.
Thanks, Margaret.
For joining us.